the principal was the best, but she had gone to Smith College and she was quite different. But that was the only time that I remember when I was young that they used it. But in a black high school, you wouldn't hear that. You would, because no one was allowed to use that word in my black high school ever. You couldn't use the word nigger. That was a no-no.
Yeah.
Not like you hear on the Metco bus. You get your mouth washed out. She asked me some good questions.
Did you get all your questions
No.
answered?
No, she's got a couple more.
Yeah,
I have a couple. You have a couple more?
Yeah.
Okay.
She's got a lot of questions.
Good questions.
Yes.
Smart young lady,
She
right?
sure is.
That's
You know,
right.
things I wouldn't think of.
Yeah.
You know, I would made me think, because, you know, often we were the only black kids.
Yeah.
You know, then until I went to Dunbar. Now that was a black high school, black teachers. I was in heaven. See, the atmosphere. It wasn't that I didn't have good white teachers, because that's not true. There was only one or two teachers who I knew who were racist or not friendly, but Canton schools had good to Dearborn was heaven. I was in the A section. I had Miss Campbell, Miss DeMurphy for math, Miss Murphy for music, and Miss Abbott for French. I remember my teachers' names because they were so good.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Miss Vincent Saka for violin. Oh, you know, I remember teachers, because teachers are a really important part of your life when you're in school. And if you have good teachers, you'll remember them.
Yeah, no matter who they are.
Yeah, they do.
So she's going to finish this with you.
Yeah, whenever she has to leave now.
No, this is her dad. This is Mr. Klahar.
You don't mind. I know, but you
Dad,
don't
we're
mind
in the
saying
video
you.
right now.
I remember you.
Yeah, I know.
No, he was.
Yeah, you remember a long time.
Now, you know who his principal was?
Who?
Tell.
I'm sorry, Miss Catherine.
Oh, you're talking James, Catherine,
Miss
my
Catherine
friend, my
James,
best friend.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah, her best friend.
Oh, that's my best friend.
Oh, the only
Wasn't
thing I could
she
remember.
Barbara the Bates? Was she at the Bates or the Cannon? You with the Bates?
The Bates.
Yeah, she was at the Cannon too. That is one of the best public school teachers I have ever seen. I walked into her classroom as a pupil adjustment counselor. I was told there was a girl there that needed glasses. And there was no teacher in the room, and everybody was complete silence, and somebody got up and said, "May I take your hat and coat?" I said, "Well, yes, but I don't think I have to say it." "Well, let me hang it up." I said, "All right." They took my hat and they said, "Would you like a cup of coffee?" I said, "Well, no, I'm not hungry or anything, but we have it if you want it." No teacher around. She had trained these children to greet guests if they came in. She was in with a horrible
That's what
principal.
I expected at Young Achievers all the time.
No,
If kids
she wasn't.
didn't do that, they
I went to schools where they called you nigger in Boston. I'll tell you that. The Woodrow Wilson, I'd drive up in my car and they'd say, "Nigger, bitch," out the window. And I knew the teachers heard it because I'd go by that floor in that room and see the teachers in the room. And I didn't know the principal, they didn't care. This is when Boston, I was the only black counselor in the history of the school system. There were no pupil adjustment counselors. They couldn't avoid me because they wanted that $600,000 of Great Cities money. I said I was number one, and they had to have a colored counselor. So they had to go by the ranking. So they had to take me, because I was going to take the exam again. You take it every 3 years. But you have to know the systemic structure of your institution so you can overcome. Now, it took Judge Garrity to change the system. I was in there before Judge John G. O'Brien and myself. Of all the 7,000 teachers, there were only 200 black teachers. Of them, only a few of us were permanent. You have to take the exams, which I did.
Yeah, right. To get.
Yeah, I was number one. We couldn't avoid me. But if they had, we were just going to take it over again. And, you know, you just played the game. You know, so in teaching, we were given the worst schools, no resources, huge classes, 43 kids, 36 seats, and me.
Wow.
1920 Scott Forsman's books. Never enough for a whole reading group.
Right.
Boys with skirts on and Mary Jane shoes. Dutch boy haircut. I'm talking about little boys wore dresses in those old books. I had
I thought you meant in your class.
in my classroom, the books I had to use for my basal readers. My music books were rote songs. 10 little niggas sitting on a fence. 9 little coons, 8 little jigs. I will never forget it. I took every one of those goddamn books and I took them to the NACP. I was furious.
What year was this?
1954, 58. I was a student teacher. No, this is when. Yeah, I was a first grade teacher in 61 at the Louisa May Alcott, built in 1840. Oldest school in the city of Boston. I was telling them, DC current, no tape recorders, no music. There was no AC, just DC current. You couldn't use the equipment. We had only cold water. We had overhead pull chain toilets. You know, the wooden things you pull the chain. They were down in the basement. We had outside fire escapes. In order for fire, you had to go out in the rain, snow, sleet, and a lot of the kids were terrified. In the last 10 feet, you had to jump. Somebody had to catch you.
Oh.
Things that, you want to know why I ran for school committee? Because when I was pupil adjustment counselor, the first thing I noticed, vast difference in equipment, buildings, cleanliness, class size between the all-black schools, which they mostly were, and schools that had all-white kids. And when I went to Brighton, I was in a state of shock. I saw Peter DeGrand books. I never saw him as a teacher. Peter DeGrand gave $5 worth of books to each teacher every year. We never got them in Roxbury. They had libraries in their schools.
Yeah.
You know how I had to go take books on my library card, and she let me get 30 because she knew I was a teacher at the South End. I got the book jackets and put them around the room because I couldn't have the books. Mayor White cut out the bookmobile. We used to have the bookmobile come up to the old Louise on West Carter Street or wherever it was, and he cut the bookmobiles out. That's how we got our books. I could get 30 books a month from the bookmobile. And when it ended, they gave me the book jackets, and we had no more library books. So I almost lost my job. I took my class of 43 kids to the South End Library. I got a letter from their parents and got the parents' permission. It was after school. We met, filed down. It was just me. I didn't have any monitor. We didn't have aides like that. I almost lost my job. They told me I didn't get permission from the superintendent to take them after school to the library, and we don't give these children library cards. That's why I ran for school committee. We don't give these children library cards. Like the SAT is only for certain kids
Yeah.
who have library cards? Oh, no. It's, John D. O'Brien and I, we were up against. That's why when I see my kids, you've seen the handbook.
Mm-hmm.
When I tell you, I don't care if you flunk it, take Latin, take French, take German, take calculus. I don't care if you flunk it, take it again. We got summer school, we got tutors. Take everything that'll give you some skill and some exposure. You can take it again, summer school in college, but you'll have it once. They start in Weston, they start algebra in 5th grade. I don't know I know it's changed in a lot of schools. We didn't get algebra till I was in the 9th grade. Algebra 1 and algebra 2 in the 10th grade, and then we took geometry in the 10th and algebra 2 in the 11th, and we took college algebra in the 3rd. I never got to trig until I went to Howard University. And that was in a black school with a good math system. But in our schools, we didn't have any of that. The difference between the Brighton schools and the Garrison, that's housing now. You know what they did? They tore down 37 schools when they saw it was going to be desegregation, so white kids would not have to bus into Roxbury. Because Roxbury is where we live. Mattapan was mostly white then. They tore down or sold schools that are now businesses. The Dillaway is housing. I had an office in there. The Dillaway School. It was all girls. Hateful bitch of a white principal. Then I had the Asa Gray, which is now a part of Northeast Wentworth. That school in the corner by Wentworth, you go by and Trade High School.
Oh, yeah.
It's Wentworth. All those were our schools. All the schools in Roxbury were given away. They tore the ones down where Northeastern is on the corner. Gone. Northeast University's got a hotel there now.
Well, let's see if Paris has a few more questions.
Yeah, she's got a few more questions.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it's
All right, we'll wait.
it has a question of power. He doesn't mind. It's a question of power, political power.
Yeah, I know. Oh, huh?
Well,
Gene is like a
we've got governor.
warehouse.
Yeah, we've got our governor. But listen, I want to know why. Excuse me, that MF has let them level fund. Well, maybe but he recommended level funding too. What is wrong with him?
I don't know.
Let me not go there.
Yeah, don't and
No, let me.
keep that person down.
His wife is wonderful. I hope she gets a good husband. She has good, nice grandchildren. Go ahead, next question.
Did the younger people respond differently from the older community regarding race?
Oh yeah, oh yes, that's okay. Everybody knows what
Regarding race and unfair treatment towards African Americans?
Yes, the kids were much more radical. A lot of the older people in the South were afraid of SNCC and CORE. All the groups that were organizing to get the voter out, and they knew, people were dying behind that. And naturally, there wasn't that older people were just fearful. They knew how dangerous it was. I mean, you know Medgar Evers' story. I have his picture. You don't know Medgar Evers? Emmett Till.
Oh, yeah. I know Emmett Till.
Okay. Medgar Evers was the head of the NACP, North Carolina, and he was pushing voter registration. They drove by his house and shot him to death right in front of his wife. Merle Evers became the head of the NACP, president, head of the whole NACP. You need to read that story, Medgar
Okay.
Evers.
Okay.
There were so many more like that. There's a book, the man who wrote it is just died yesterday, The Spook That Sat by the Door. You read that.
Okay.
It's about the CIA and FBI. You read that. Come in.
On Tuesday, I'm not
Yes,
right.
I won't. You'll see me Wednesday. Tuesday, I got a colonoscopy.
Oh, okay, Tuesday, Wednesday. All right.
Wednesday.
Good luck.
Yeah. Okay, honey. Have a good weekend.
During the Civil Rights Movement, do you believe Lyndon Johnson and John F. Kennedy played an active role with the progression of equality and justice?
They
for
were forced to.
African-Americans?
They were forced to. Lyndon Baines Johnson knew how to knock, as they said in the Globe, he knew how to knock heads together. And he did help to pass, because of his skill, Civil Rights Act of 1964, is it? 61, 64?
64.
64,
Yeah.
I should remember that one because we were writing letters. He was a skilled politician. JFK had to be dragged kicking and screaming. Good man, bright man. Didn't know anything about black people. But finally, a letter from a Birmingham jail, he had to learn to deal with the import of what it meant to have Martin Luther King in jail in Birmingham, because he called to find out. He began to interject. He didn't. Here's how much he didn't know. When I went to the march in Washington, my church went. We drove cars. There were, I forget how many hundreds of thousands of people. They always undercounted, but the reflecting pool up to the Lincoln Memorial, it was hot. Just hundreds of thousands of people. We said about 700 or 800,000. They said 200. No, easily. That much left from New England. I mean, we had hundreds. We went in our car. There were busloads, there were trainloads, there were people flying. People came from all over the country, and it was silent. It was hot. I sent my kids back by cab to my aunt's house. It was too hot for my children. They were 8 and 13, 8 and 10, or something like that. And what you could hear was the sound of feet. That's what I remember. The sound of people walking is all you heard. And every so often people would sing, ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around, gonna let nobody turn me around, keep on a walking, keep on a talking. Everybody was singing the freedom songs. All the different, we shall overcome. They'd sing that with everything you thought of, you sang, and people would then just march silently. And then finally, you could hear, I forget who sang up. It was, I know James Baldwin was up there, and Sleeping Car Porters.
What? I had to do a essay on that.
Who's the guy who organized Sleeping Car Porters? Philip Randolph. He organized that march. Philip Randolph. He is the architect of the March in Washington. I have all the books at home.
Really?
I have the book. Oh yeah, the March. You have to read them. The photography is fantastic, and all of the civil rights leaders were up there in front. And guess who didn't come? John F. Kennedy, the president. He never showed up. Never sent anybody. No officials from the U.S. government. Oh, the FBI agents were everywhere taking pictures of all these millions of black folks. That was okay. Couldn't do nothing. They didn't know our names, but no. John F. Kennedy was a